And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
All right, attention to roll call, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I got a good friend with me, Athena Clarke. Athena Clarke is running for City Council District 46. She's running against Mercedes Narcisse. You may know Mercedes Narcisse. We did an episode recently where we spoke about her outlawing jaywalking. She was making jaywalking legal for pedestrians, removing even more tools from the NYPD. Athena is a very interesting person. Somebody that should be lauded in New York City, and we need to make her a household name in New York City. The reason she's running for city council is because Athena, like myself, was a public servant. Athena, like myself, was a very highly rated public servant, a very well-liked public servant. She was a New York City school teacher. She was loved by her children, her peers, her supervisors, her community. And then Athena said no. Athena said no to a medical intervention, and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio terminated her. New York City Mayor Eric Adams came into office and ignored her, pretended like that didn't happen. So Athena, out of that, decided, you know what? I'm going to put my name in the hat. So Athena, I'm honored to have you here today.
Thank you.
Could you just tell us a little about yourself? Can you tell us where you grew up, how you grew up, what life was like for you early on?
I was born in Kings County. Everyone knows Kings County in Brooklyn. And so I grew up in East Flatbush in the beginning. My parents moved us to Old Mill Basin when I was around 6. Been there my entire life. That's pretty much the only place in Brooklyn that I actually know. Everything else I need GPS to navigate. I went to all the schools there, 203, Roy Mann, Sheepshead. My parents are Jamaican, so they're immigrants, migrated here to give us a better life. So me and my younger sister, they have 3 girls. We're the first generation Americans. My older sister was actually born in Jamaica as well. And so most of our family migrated over here, to give us a better life. My parents moved us from East Flatbush to Mill Basin. My dad was a yellow cabbie, and my mom is a hairdresser and a home attendant as well. And I always knew I wanted to work with kids. I didn't know in what capacity, whether it was like being a pediatrician or a physical therapist with kids, but it was always children. Like I always worked with children. And that's honestly the only job I've ever had. I did summer youth when I was 16. Then I did like after school programs with the YMCA in my young adulthood. I went to Brooklyn College. I worked in daycares. And then eventually I became a teacher within the Department of Education. I'm a special education teacher. I teach the babies. I love the young ones. I was a first grade teacher. I loved my school. I actually taught within the district as well. The last school I was with before I was terminated was PS 207, which is in Marine Park. I taught in the early childhood building, and I loved my job. I loved my students. I loved my principals. Not many teachers can say that, but I did. I had a great time. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was good. I loved it all. And then it just came crashing down before my very eyes. And honestly, I still can't believe that this situation has even happened. It's such a shock. It's been 5 years since COVID, and it doesn't feel like it. I feel like I'm still in a time warp trying to figure things out. So the mandate came down, and everyone was like, oh, they're not going to mandate the shot, like it's just a choice. And then a choice quickly became, you have to do this. And it was, how do you choose between feeding your family and doing something that goes completely against what you believe in, what you stand for? It was insane. And ultimately, I was just like, no.
No, it was honestly, I'm with you, man. Because I even this morning, I feel like it's a dream to me. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I sitting here with a terminated teacher? Like, me and you should both be at work today, right now in New York City. I think the biggest shock to me was that how New York City turned its back on the people that really are the backbone of the city. I mean, look at your story, right? Your parents are first generation immigrants. Your father works hard to put his daughter in a position that's better, to give you a better life than he had.
Yeah.
He does that. You're living the American dream.
I was.
I mean, and so what how do you feel of that? Like, I often say, like, people like, you left New York City. I'm like, no, I didn't leave New York City. New York City left
New York left you.
I was like, it didn't even leave me. It gave me a kick in the ass and said, get out of here. We don't want anybody that thinks like you. And I was honestly, I was flabbergasted growing up in the city, going to public school like you. I was always a city, like a very diverse city, a very welcoming city, a city that respected others, or a city that respected differences. How was growing up for you in New York City? Did you feel the same? Were you proud to have went to school in New York City and then seeking a career in New York City? How was New York City growing up, first generation immigrant, supposedly a city that we hear today that loves immigrants, right? We love immigrants.
Yeah.
They don't look like they love you too much.
They don't, right? Exactly, right? I'm literally a first generation. Like, that's it. My parents came here in their 20s. I loved it. We had a great time. I used to play outside. We used to jump rope, play tag, do dodgeball, all the things, play outside. I used to literally, in the summer times, I would wake up, eat breakfast, go outside, go inside for dinner, come back outside, go back inside at 10 p.m. and do it all over again. Like, that was how I grew up. And, my schools, we had a good time. Like, it was very diverse. And I really was living the American dream, and like you said, like, that was the one thing my father would always say, because he used to wake up 4:00 in the morning to get ready to go to work. And he was like, he goes, you see how I'm working? He's like, I don't want you girls, because, it's 3 of us. I don't want you girls to grow up like me. Like, go to school, get your education, get your degree, get a career, so you don't have to work. He used to say, I work like a donkey. You don't have to work like a donkey like me. And I did it. You know what I mean? Like, I got a bachelor's, I got a master's. My parents don't have higher education. Like, they didn't even graduate high school. So for me to be able to say, I got a bachelor's degree, I got a master's degree, and I'm in the city doing what they told me to do, and to be stripped of it is unfair. It's unjust, and it's not right. And to act like it didn't exist, because that's exactly what's happening right now. They're trying to act like this never existed, like we never existed, and that everything is okay. It's not okay. It's really not okay.
So you're running as a Republican now.
Yeah.
How was your political leanings earlier on? Like, what were your thoughts on the Democratic Party prior to the mandates and then after? Like, how was that looking? Like, obviously, like I've spoken about it before. My parents, my entire neighborhood were Democrats growing up. I know basically every Democrat politician in New York City. And I remember a time when I couldn't really tell the difference between a Republican and a Democrat. I was just told that Democrats are for the working people. That's how I was brought up. That's how I was raised. And, growing up around cops, firemen, criminals, like whoever, like there was no real big difference between the Democrats and Republicans in my opinion, in New York City, as it related to things that are common sense. When we talk about the border, when we talk about civil rights, when we talk about the process, when we talk about public safety. And here I see a huge divide. Like, what were your political leanings? Obviously, when we're young, I think we're all a little bit more liberal, like we like to say. I think they'll still say that me and you are conspiracy theorists now, but I'll sit here and say that we're actually still very liberal people. Like, what'd you think about, like, growing up? Like, what'd you think about the political spectrum of New York City?
Yeah, so growing up, I was also Democrat. My parents are Democrat. And like you, I didn't really see much of a difference. It was just like, all right, we're Democrats. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, we're Democrats. Prior to COVID, I don't think, honestly, I was giving it much thought. I was just going about my daily life. And then my husband is huge into politics and stuff. So he would kind of like say certain things to me and show me certain videos. And I'll just be like, okay, that's interesting. But still, like, you kind of far removed from it. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now still. I think now more people are starting to pay attention to what's going on, because certain things aren't making sense. And so even during COVID, I was still like, Democrat or whatever. But I remember when we got locked down, I remember my coworkers asking, like, do you think we're going to come back? And I was like, yeah, we're going to come back. Like, it's just 2 weeks. Like, little did I know, politics, that we're going to be shut down for like from March all the way until June. And so then I started to think like, that's suspicious. I remember Trump wanted us to open up, and he was like, it's going to happen. Like, just open it. It was like, no, 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 no. And I was like, I kind of do want to be open. I'm getting depressed being home, seeing these gray walls. And then I remember like the mandate was coming. And then I remember it didn't come from him. You know what I mean? Like, everyone thought he was going to mandate it, and he did it. And then it came from Biden, and then no one said anything. And to me, that was so suspicious, because before, when they were speculating whether or not Trump was going to mandate the shot, it was, we're not going to take this. He can't tell us what to do with our bodies. We don't know what's happening. And then Biden does it, and no one says anything. And I'm just like, okay, something's up. And everyone just went, like, there was no voice of opposition at all. And to me, that was very weird. And I was like, so where are these same people who was just screaming, hey, if this happens under Trump, we're going to fight it? Why aren't we still fighting it? Because it's still wrong. Regardless who mandates it, it shouldn't be happening. So after that, I was kind of like, I said, I will never vote for another Democrat as long as I live. And even though I was still registered as a Democrat, I voted, Republican or independent or, whatever like that. But I was like, I will never. And I still feel that way. Like, and I know you never say never, but honestly, even if I felt there was a good running Democrat, I still wouldn't vote for a Democrat. I can't do it. I can't trust them. I don't trust them.
Well, I mean, I think your story is the story of New York City. People always like, oh, you guys get what you voted for. And I'm like, I traditionally didn't vote for this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't vote for this. I think in New York, it's a very fast-paced city. I think, work is hard, school's hard. You work your way through school. You get a very intense job where you're working constantly. And politics is really in the background, right? I didn't watch the news. I didn't even know what people were saying. I'm like, I was like, watch the news. Did you see what they said on the news? I was like, no, I make the news. I was like,
right.
I don't watch the news, And so like a lot of people are just detached from politics in New York City. They really are. They really don't understand. If you told people that story, your story right now, they're going to say, what are you talking about? You were fired because you did something wrong.
Yeah.
What'd you do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
People don't even know what happened.
No.
And that's, I think there is an awakening happening in this country politically on both sides, and I think people are starting to get more in tune to politics and politicians and issues. And I think honestly, it was done on purpose. Honestly, it was done on purpose. These people play. They do everything up in there in the dark. We don't know how laws are made. We don't know how they're passed. We don't know how they're affected. And then one day we woke up, and you're sitting there and you're planning your retirement, and you're planning your kid's future, and you're planning your future. And they're like, you know what? If you don't do what I tell you right now, I'm going to take everything from you. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what are you talking about? I signed a contract when I started with this city.
Yeah, I did.
I signed this contract. There are OEO laws that protect me. There's a constitution that protects me. There's a Civil Rights Act in 1964 that protects me. What do you mean I'm fired in 7 days without due process, without ever being charged with anything?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I don't know. And it's funny that you mentioned like people being so detached from the news, because, as I'm running for city council, I do my petitioning myself along with like other volunteers. And as people are like signing my petition or reading my card, they're like, I thought you guys got your jobs back. And I'm like, no. They're like, didn't the courts rule in your favor? I say yes, and the city takes your tax dollars and they keep appealing it. I'm like, so no, we're not back at work. I'm like, your teachers, your police officers, your firefighters, your sanitation, like, we are not back at work. Don't believe the news. Like, we are still here struggling, trying to navigate this new space of us not working. I'm like, and it's very difficult as a teacher. I feel like to a certain extent, I have it somewhat easier because I can teach elsewhere. But when you're a firefighter, when you're a cop, when you're doing sanitation, it's hard to pick up and just do something else, And even teaching, like New York is a city, so we don't get paid well, but we get paid well enough. We're okay. But in other parts of the country, teaching is like on the back burner. Like even with your master's degree, you're only making $45,000 a year. Who wants to leave and do that? You know what I'm saying? And so it's like when I chose this career, I also chose it because it has job security, or so I thought. And that job security went away. Tenure is supposed to be like the strongest thing in your contract. That's what they make us fight for. And I never got due process. They just fired me. But you have a teacher in the Bronx who was caught showing kids porn, and he got due process, and he got to sit for 2 years making $140,000, and he got due process, whereas I did nothing wrong and others like me, and they just fired me without a second thought.
Yeah, and I laugh every day. I watched Eric Adams cry when he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and I watched all the people get indicted and plead guilty or get convicted around him.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they were all just guilty, but he was a political target according to him, and he wasn't receiving due process. But he only believes in due process when it concerns Eric Adams.
Exactly,
and that's the problem for me. Like, so I've been advocating a lot, along with a lot of other people in New York City, about where's the due process. I look at the Democratic politicians, I look at the Republican politicians, and they often say due process. We respect due process. We respect the rights of the accused. And I'm like, well, what about us? And then it falls blank. I'm like, so you don't respect due process?
No.
And then I hear about religious rights in the workplace, or I hear about religious freedom. And I'm like, well, what about us?
Exactly.
And everyone's like,
what about you?
What about you?
That's what
I'm like, okay, so you don't respect religious freedom. And then I'm like, well, what about civil rights? On Martin Luther King Day, I hear you guys all talk quotes from Martin Luther King Day. I'm like, where are the civil rights that that this man fought for? Where are they?
It doesn't
celebrating
exist.
them. Where are they?
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it was really disheartening. So you're a teacher. You're there. What was that like for you? Like you're there, you had worked all the way up. You got a master's degree. You spent thousands and thousands of dollars, countless hours, studying, homework, all to get this career. You're in this career. You're on the trajectory up in your career. And what take us back to that time? What was that? What was that like for you?
So, I went to Brooklyn College. I actually was in school originally to be a physical therapist. And one thing I should say, I was a lazy student, okay? So I could get by, like, I'm pretty smart, not to toot my own horn, but when it comes to like actually like sciences, no. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a teacher. Someone was like, you should teach, like you're good at teaching. I was working in after school. And I went to Brooklyn College, and I was like, okay, now that I knew that I was going to teach, like I went so hard in Brooklyn College. I did my bachelor's in 3 years because I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. So I went to school fall, summer, spring, like through and through. Every semester, there was like 4 semesters you can do. And I did all 4 semesters because I was like, I'm going to do this. And I took my exams. There were 4, passed them. So I did all that before I graduated. And then got into DOE within 2 years of graduating because, it's competitive to get into DOE. And when I originally started, I started in Far Rockaway, and that school was rough. Okay. Even though it was elementary school, those kids were rough. But I did, and I wasn't driving at the time. So I was taking the bus, with the beach, and in the winter time, it was horrific. It was cold. But then eventually I left. I taught in Inwood. So, right borderline close to the Bronx. And I loved it there as well. I taught pre-K students, special education again. And then I finally got into my dream school, which was 207. And so I finally got there, and I was like, I can like breathe easy, like I made it to where I really wanted to be. And I was teaching. I even went to go get like my plus 30, which is an additional 30 credits after my master's. And it was just I was happy because I was like, okay, I'm going to finally get to this point. I literally finished my plus 30, saw what my salary was going to be. And I said, oh, okay, this is good. I only got paid 3 times because then the mandates happened and I was put on LWOP. So even that I'm angry about. Like, I literally just finished this. I just finished spending this money to, continue to pursue the American dream, and nothing. Like, we were trying to buy a house. I can no longer do that. That's a dream deferred for right now because I haven't had like sustainable work since this has happened. I took pay cuts. I did little odds and end jobs, but nothing concrete. It's hard to find your footing after going through something like this.
Well, I mean, you worked for how many years to get a career? You worked for years and years to get a career. You got there, and then it was just taken from you overnight. And I think that the biggest thing for me was where I saw that the biggest hypocrisy in it, because when you go back to that time, the Black Lives Matter movement had just started, right? So it was like Black Lives Matter, and we got a bunch of questions about public safety in here, and we'll get into public safety. Okay. Athena's strong on public safety.
Yeah,
her husband was a cop. He's no longer. I'm not going to say where he is or what he does now, but that's up to you if you want to bring that in. But he was a cop. So Athena's strong on public safety. We will talk about the gang database and things like that. But at that time, it was the Black Lives Matter movement, right? Mm-hmm. At that time, it was the height of New York City pushing this diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, you want to demonize me because I'm a male white. That's fine. How are you demonizing Athena Clarke? Mm-hmm. And they did it because the diversity really is not about diversity. It's not about they tell you, oh, we want to push Black and brown people in New York City ahead. Is this how you push Black and brown people in New York City ahead? Is this how you push women ahead in New York City? Because it doesn't look like that to me. First generation immigrant, low income family, father's a cab driver, works her way up, gets a career, is charged with nothing. Right? And now we have cops that are robbing people, robbing houses of prostitutions while they're fondling prostitutes. We have teachers sexting and having sex with kids. Yep. And they stay on the payroll. They get hit with a charge. For years and years, they receive health care. They receive due process. But because Athena Clarke said no, Athena Clarke gets no due process. None. And she's terminated within 7 days of employment from New York City. And she's and on top of being terminated, what they did significantly with the teachers is they added like a black mark on your record.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So I wasn't terminated within 7 days. So they made their date and then I was put on leave without pay,
gotcha.
Which is pretty much, it was a termination. Let's just be honest. It was a suspension that they did. It was termination in my.
And what was your charge?
Nothing. not, complying. There we go. Not complying with their mandate. So I was put on leave in October. And then they emailed me in like February that they're going to terminate me. Then they emailed me in June that they were going to terminate me. So I didn't get terminated until August of 2022. And they just sent the letter saying, if I'm coming back to work, submit my my documentation saying that I got the vaccine. If I'm not, I'm going to be terminated. So clearly I didn't submit anything. I didn't sign off on anything. I wasn't waiving anything. Their severance package was, oh, you get paid out for your days. I earned those days because I didn't call out of work. That's not a severance package. That's just what's due to me. Regardless, whenever I depart the city, those days come back to me. You have to pay me out for those days. Whatever. So wasn't working. I was like tutoring, for myself. And then I got hired to work at a UPK program and I was able to work. However, I was seeing that certain teachers received a code, right? And I was like, a problem code. And I was like, oh, I don't think I have that because, I'm teaching here, right? No, I was wrong. I think the agency that I was working for, God bless you, by the way, used other fingerprints, the DOI fingerprints to get my clearance. Because this year, literally this year, this January, I went to work as something called a SEA. It's like a special education teacher that travels around. and they couldn't hire me. They emailed me saying, "Hey, we put your fingerprint clearance in, and you have a problem code. We can't clear you to work." What do you mean you can't clear me to work? And I was like, what? So I had a problem code. I really did. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you're trying to use this guise of protection and you barring people from just being able to work. So I can't work for the city and I can't work for DOE and I just can't work at all, is basically what you're telling me to do. And to me, I don't see how you can say, you know, oh, you're for the working class when you prevented thousands of us from being able to work. Because I saw recently too that Hochul fired correction officers and also stopped them from being able to work anywhere else within the state. That makes no sense. And then also within the teaching realm, I couldn't teach in New York City, but I was able to teach in Westchester for the summer. So what was so specific that New York City teachers and police officers and workers couldn't work, but if you went elsewhere in the state, you could have?
Or, you know, the craziest thing to me is like during that time, I couldn't eat in restaurants. I could go to work.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I could still go to work because I personally believe that, in my opinion, the mandate was very systematic and it was a layoff. It had nothing to do with safety at all. And I believe it was a layoff to lower the budget and lower the headcount of a lot of agencies. I personally believe they went after nurses and teachers first because they wanted the fight to go up against women first.
Yeah.
Traditionally, women don't fight back at a higher level. Like, you know, overall, when you look at women. So I think it really was the attack on women. So I'm watching this happen to teachers, great teachers that I know and I love in New York City public schools and nurses. And I'm watching them literally, in my opinion, be medically raped.
Yeah.
They're going against their conscience. They're going against their religion. They don't want to do this. Men are completely silent. I'm like, I can't do this. And then I take a trip to Florida just to get out. I'm like, I got to get out of the city. I'm like, I'm losing my mind here. And I go out to Florida and I walk in a restaurant and there's a guy wearing an Islanders jersey, comes over, shakes my hand. I have no mask on. And I'm like, why is it different in New York? I'm like, how long you guys been locked down for? They're like, we were locked down 2 days. They're like, you guys are still locked down now? I'm like, I can't even eat in a restaurant.
Yeah.
They want me to wear a mask everywhere I go, you know? And then, you know, so to me, that was crushing me, absolutely crushing me. Listen, Athena, we're going to be right back. When we get back, I'm going to start asking you about, I want to know what your specific fight was. Okay. And then like what happened as a result of that. And then I want to get into the politics, why you're running. But before we do that, I just want to give a shout out to who's sponsoring this program. It's Fund the First. Fund the First is honestly, it's an innovative platform. It's a crowdfunding fundraising platform where they actually verify every campaign that you run. So if you need, God forbid, someone you know is sick, and you want to hold a fundraiser for them, they can't just hold a fundraiser in someone's name without them first verifying through that family, which is unique to any other platform. You know, you saw also the fundraiser that we did for Eric Dim, and shout out to Eric Dim and prayers for the Dim family and Derek. And that fundraiser, you know, people were unfortunately horrible people in the world were putting up fundraiser after fundraiser in Derek's name. That cannot be done on Fund the First. So check out Fund the First. Let them know that your friends at the Finest Unfiltered sent.
Ever wonder who helps our everyday heroes when they need support? Enter fundthefirst.com, a unique crowdfunding platform dedicated to first responders, their families, and their friends. Unlike typical sites, we don't take a cut. Every dollar goes directly to those in need. Whether it's for emergency medical bills, family emergencies, or equipment, fundthefirst.com is there. It's our chance to give back to those who risk it all for us. From police officers to firefighters, these heroes deserve our support. Want to make a real impact? Check out fundthefirst.com and show our heroes that we've got their backs. It's time to support those who always support us.
everybody. Welcome back. All right. So here's my question, Athena. Because people say it to me all the time. They're like, "Why didn't you just take it?" I'm like, "It's the easiest thing I could have did. Just take it. Just take it. I could have been part of the boys club, continued. I could have went up on my career. I would have been a captain or a deputy inspector right now. I would have been taking pictures with Eric Adams, right?
Yeah.
I would have been doing all those good things. I would have still been in with the in crowd. But it was the easiest thing for me to do, but I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
What was that for you?
So honestly, initially, I just didn't want to. And I feel like that should have been enough. You know what I mean? Like, no, should have been enough. So I just didn't want to. I just felt like it just came about too quickly, honestly. And I don't really take shots in general. Like, I don't take the flu shot or anything like that. So I haven't had a shot. Like, the last shot I took was like a tetanus shot when I was in my undergrad, because a student gave me a high five and he had a pin in his hand and it pricked me. So yeah, that's DOV schools for you. And so they told me to, like, go get checked out. And so I was like in my early 20s when that happened. But that's the last shot I've ever taken. So for me personally, it was just like medical freedom. Like, I didn't want to take it. And then also there was no accountability. There's no liability as well. So it was like, okay, I don't know what this is going to do to my body if I do take it. And if something does happen to me, who do I get to hold accountable for it? DOE wasn't going to be held accountable. The pharmaceutical company wasn't going to be held accountable. So God forbid if I take this and I get medically injured, what did I take it for exactly? Now I'm harmed. I still can't work. I still can't make money. And now I have to live with a vaccine injury. And so that for me was a big no. I didn't want to take it. I was in my early 30s, wanted to have kids, thank God I have my baby now. But I just didn't know what the repercussions was going to be of this choice. And I was like, no. And my husband made a good point. He said, we were kids when 9/11 happened. But he's like, when 9/11 happened and they had like the police department and firefighters and sanitation, everyone doing the cleanup, they said, oh, the air is good. Like, the air is clear. You guys are good. You can do this. Then years later, it's like, okay, we're getting sick. And they're like, oh, I don't know. You're on your own. Like, they had to fight, to get medical help. They had to fight to sue. People are getting cancers all left and right. And the city had nothing to say. The city has a way of going silent after the dust is settled. And I wasn't willing to take that chance. So it was a no. It was a hard pass for me.
No, I mean, and that's honorable and that's integrity, right? You could have easily did it. You could have easily submitted a fake vaccine card, which thousands upon thousands of New York City employees did. Mm-hmm. And I don't say that to like fault them. I understand the situation that they were in, but it was a low integrity move. Honestly, it just showed, and I was like, I'm not willing to bend my integrity for that. I think, and I think at that time, there was a lot of lies that were coming out from New York City. I was getting emails every day that just weren't true. We don't know how long your natural immunity is going to last. This is safe for this. And I was like, it's 99% effective. And then it was 98% effective. And then it was 97%.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what is happening here?
Exactly.
And then all the people that I'm watching taking it, and I didn't take it because I followed the medical advice of the NYPD, who told me, listen, we don't think you should take this because you'll probably have you'll have an adverse reaction because you had gotten this really bad. More than likely, you're going to have a higher immune response, and that's when adverse reactions happen. So I was like, okay, that makes sense, right? And then so I see everyone taking it, and what's happening to them is they're still getting it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so why am I taking this? So I asked the NYPD's medical division. I said, if I could give my blood, because I have antibodies, if I'm giving my blood and my blood is being used to heal other people, why is my blood not good enough to keep me safe? Right. I was like, and you're asking me to take this, and fine, I get it. Just to answer me why. Has anyone ever told you why you needed to take that?
Nope. I have no reason why. And we were locked down, and then the following school year, teachers had the option to put in an accommodation to either work from home or work in the school. I worked in the school the entire year with my students. So it didn't make any sense as to why now. And I think by the time that the mandate happened, like the worst of COVID was pretty much over. So it didn't make sense. And it went from, oh, you get the shot and you won't get COVID. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, no, we didn't say that you wouldn't get COVID. We said that you'll get COVID, but it won't be as bad. So it was just like, so which one is it? Like, I've never taken any vaccine and worried about still getting what I'm taking the vaccine against. Like, it doesn't make any kind of sense. And I did get COVID while I was working in the school. So, I probably still had immunity as well. And it just didn't make sense. Like, I was like, I'll still get tested. Like, why was testing okay a year ago, but testing isn't okay now? None of it makes sense.
And that's the thing that I think New York City is denying, and I think all of them, I think all the politicians are denying, is that we were being accommodated. And as per DCAS, that was an acceptable accommodation that did not cause the agency an undue hardship.
Yeah.
So why did that get pulled away from you? Why were you no longer being accommodated when others were?
Yeah.
That's the thing that ultimately bothers me. So we get a revelation in the summer, right? We get a revelation this summer where Dr. Vasan, Jay Vasan, or whatever the hell his name is, Dr. Vasan, he comes out, he gets caught in an undercover video saying that there's absolutely no difference between someone who has had a previous infection and someone who has took the shot. Now, he was the father of the mandates. And he's in another scenario, when it came time to sign on the mandates, he perjures himself and he lies. Were you aware of that video? And what were your thoughts when you saw that?
I did see the video, and I thought, honestly, as more things were unfolding, I was like, okay, yes, this is the proof that we need to show that, everything is okay. And then it was like, forget that video. Like that video didn't exist. Oh, he wasn't talking, he wasn't speaking for us. And it was just like, what are you talking about? And it was like more and more things were coming into play that, should have been able to keep us in work. And none of it mattered. Like, no matter what we were showing, no matter what was coming to light, it was clear. Like, they was pushing it down. Like, they were like, no, the mandate is still happening. This is still going down. You're not going to work if you don't take the shot. And it was just like, what is going on?
Absolutely. So when is it? When does Athena have the revelation that, you know what? I hate what I'm saying, and I'm going to put my name in the hat. When does that happen for you?
So I did sue, and the purpose of our suit was on the base of tenure and that we're not supposed to be fired without due process. So we weren't even arguing the efficacy of the COVID mandate and the shot. Like, you think the shot saved the city? Fine, the shot saved the city. However, you're not supposed to terminate me without due process. I am tenured. I'm supposed to be protected under the law. The case went all the way to the Court of Appeals in Albany, and ultimately they were like, nope, we side with the city. And so, yeah, crazy. No due process.
Did you know the merits of that? Like, what? How did they? Like, what? Why were you not, like? Where was the due process? You didn't receive a charge. You didn't receive a department trial. No. You didn't receive an investigation. They just asked you. Like, would you know what the court said?
Honestly, I saw the paperwork, but I kind of blanked it out. I'm not even gonna, because it was just like, how? Like, when I saw because we went to the court, like, I saw the case and live, and when I saw my attorney argue that case, because they literally asked the city's attorneys, like, okay, so if the city said that, each teacher has to get a PhD within 3 weeks, is that in the realm of being able to for it to be a condition of employment? Because they were saying that the mandate was a condition of employment. Absolutely. And the city said, yeah, we could do that. And the judges kind of looked like, really? So that was set in court, and yet they still didn't rule in our favor.
So time out. The city said that they could just basically mandate anything. Yes. So your lawyer asks them, could you make a condition of employment? Someone gets a PhD in 3 weeks, or we're going to terminate you. And the city,
The judges asked.
The judges asked that, and the city said yes. And you could tell by the judges' reaction that they were like, "That's absolutely not true."
Yes, I can tell. Like they kind of looked like.
Yeah, no, I've been there. I know I've been in court a ton of times, but yet they still sided with the city.
They still sided with, like, even after saying, like, when they said that, I was like, yes, yeah, and they still sided with the city.
You know, that's the other thing I think when we look at politics is a lot of these judges are appointed.
They're corrupt. Yes.
Some of them are elected, but in order to take back the political spectrum of New York, you have to get rid of these judges, because that is just a completely bogus statement. That is a bogus decision. There is no way the city that, you know, I'm not going to say what I said because you're a lady on here, but I was giving an example about what I would say to guys is in the police department. And I would always give the example. I was like, so Eric Adams could just tell me he needs to do XYZ to my wife because it's safe and effective. And I have to do that to stay employed. I have to be like, oh yeah, take my wife. You know, I'm like, I won't give the exact wording.
Yeah, but I was
people on the thing have said it, heard what I've said before, and people are like, well, no, they can't do that. And I'm like, why can't they do it?
They
What's
can.
the difference?
Yeah.
What is the difference?
There isn't.
You're not even giving me a valid reason of why we have to do this. You know, that is awful. That is horrible. That is disgusting that happened to you. And watching these politicians go out and blast the Trump organization for people that aren't even citizens of this country.
Okay.
And they're doing yet nothing for you.
Nothing.
No outrage.
Nothing. No outcry. No protest. Nothing. We had to do it for ourselves. And that's what I was saying. Like, the city could just decide and say, hey, we've been noticing that when these kids grow up, they're violent. So, you know, if they're born to mothers over 35, so let's start sterilizing them, everyone over 35. Like, that's really what it feels like. They just pull nonsense out of thin air and say, it's because it's safe. It's for your safety. Like, it's not for your safety. There's so many things that we're still going through in the terms of public safety. It's not.
So for all the Democrats listening to this today and the Democrat politicians, I guess we don't care about marginalized communities. I guess we don't care about women. I guess we don't care about public service, worker rights, civil rights, because literally no one said boo. I didn't see that in the paper. That should have been front cover of the paper. Shame on all the reporters that are listening to this that couldn't write that story. That is a terrible decision. That is I want to get the video clip of that and put that out. That is horrible.
It's out there.
Yeah, I got to get the video clip of that because that is horrible. All right. So obviously you're traumatized. You're forced from your career, your livelihood stripped from you. Everything, your hopes and your dreams are all taken from you because you asked a question and you said no. And so what happened? So when are you like, I'm going to run? What happened?
So we lost that case. My attorney's furious because, you know, with everything that's going on, there's really only like 5 attorneys that are really trying to help us out, right? And so he's just like, the judges aren't God. He's like, you know, like, they're not kings, they're not queens, they're not monarchs. He's like, there's still options after the court system. So his idea was for us to run for offices. He was like, hey, because I think it was 6 plaintiffs, if I believe. And he was like, he goes, you guys need to get in office and fix it. And so it was like, who's going to do it? And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then it was like, so who's going to do it? And I was like, oh, I guess I'll do it. So that's ultimately what happened. This is so not something that I want to do. Like, I'm a teacher. That's what I do. But I'm also a person that when someone brings something to me, I always ask, like, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, I don't want to hear about it if you're not going to do anything about it. And I can't be someone who says that and I don't practice what I preach. So I said, you know what? I'll do it. I'll run and we'll see how far we go. And that's ultimately what happened.
No, listen, you know, I often, you know, like I always say that the people that should do things are the people that don't want to do the things. Yeah. You know, it's like Eric Adams wants to be the mayor. It's every reason why he shouldn't be the mayor.
Yeah.
Andrew Cuomo wants to be the mayor. That's all the reason I need to know why
Yeah.
he shouldn't be the mayor. You know, and when I look at all these politicians, they want these seats.
Mm-hmm.
And like you want to be in public service, you want to be accountable to millions and millions of New Yorkers. I don't believe you.
Exactly.
I don't believe you. You know, and I always look at. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Gladiator, but there's like a famous line in there where, Marcus Aurelius, who was emperor of Rome, some consider the greatest emperor of Rome. He says how his son's immoral, and he wants to give Rome to his general. He wants his general to be Caesar. And his general was Maximus Meridius, whatever. And he says to him, I don't want to do that. I just want to go home and I want to raise crops.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's exactly why it has to be you.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly why it has to be you, because you're a moral person. You care about people. You don't want the power. You don't need the power, right? No. But you'll do good things with the power.
Yeah.
So all right, so you're on the compensate and reinstate bandwagon, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. I think your lawyer is 100% correct. It's that, there's another famous quote. I forget who it was, and where they said that if you don't get involved in politics, then you're just going to be a slave basically to everyone who is. You're just giving away your rights. So I applaud you on that. But this is a public safety platform. We have a lot of retired cops on here. We have a lot of blue collar workers on here. We have a lot of people in the public safety spectrum on here. There's a bill currently up in city council. Now, it's going to pass. I'm not going to sit here and say Athena's going to get in city council. It's going to save everything. No, what we need to do is we need to start taking back seats in city council. Currently, there's 51 seats in city council. 44 of them are occupied by Democrats.
Yeah.
Vote in a block. This bill is passing, but I want your thoughts on the bill. So the bill is to abolish the NYPD's gang database. The gang database is this. If you're in a gang, whether you're self-admitted, and there's a bunch of different parameters, there's a bunch of different parameters that you're involved in gang activity, the NYPD will put you in this gang database for X amount of time. Mm-hmm. While you're in that gang database, this information is shared with no one, not employers, not if you're looking for a home, not if you're going to go to school. It's literally shared with nobody. Like, it's not showing up on your credit check. The NYPD uses this gang database. They put the gang members in the database. And when there's a gang shooting, someone's shot. Anytime someone's shot or anytime someone's stabbed, the first thing they do is they put the victim's name in the gang database to ascertain whether or not they themselves are a gang member. Mm-hmm. The reason they do this, not to charge the victim, it's because we know when it relates to gang shootings or gang actions or gang violence, there's always retaliation. So in that gang database, it'll say, yes, this guy's a member of XYZ gang. XYZ gang is beefing with these gangs. And the NYPD uses that information to deploy resources to those other neighborhoods and the neighborhood where this kid is from to stop further violence. Now, New York City Council is now, this bill's forward. They're going to vote on that bill. And they've given zero reasoning as to how it harms the people that are listed inside of this gang database. But the reason that they want to take the gang database down is because 97% of the people in the gang database are people of color. Athena Clarke's elected to New York City Council. What's Athena Clarke's stance on the NYPD gang database? Would you vote to abolish it, or would you vote against it?
I would vote against it. I don't understand why would you get rid of the gang database. I understand that 97% of people are people of color, but if that's where the gangs are, then they're going to be 97% of people of color. You understand what I'm saying? Like, and as someone who, I did move to Old Mill Basin young, but I also had lived on Newkirk and 21st for a little bit. And if you know anything about that neighborhood, it is rough as well. And that's just how it is. Like, it's not like it was specifically targeting Black and brown people specifically. That's just who happens to be in the gangs. And if we need it for safety purposes, what is the what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do if you get rid of it? How are you going to help protect the same communities that are already lacking resources? Like, you're literally taking resources from the communities that need it the most and just putting a stamp on it and saying, oh, okay, it's because it harms Black and brown people. It doesn't make sense, because what about those of us who aren't criminals, who you are protecting? Now what happens to us? What happens to us in those communities who have to go home, have our children, raise our kids, and now there's no protection for us when there's a shooting happening, and now here they come, drive-by shooting, and now people are harmed and there was no one on site. Because let's just be honest, the short amount of time that I lived on Newkirk, I was so happy when I would go home in the evenings and see the patrol cars parked on the corner. I'm like, oh yes, the cops are here today. You understand? So you do feel a sense of relief seeing the cops in the community. And I feel like they have this tendency now to kind of just throw race at it and say, oh, it's targeting Black people, it's targeting this. And it's just like, Black people want to feel safe too. And we look to NYPD to also feel safe. And that's just the truth. When something goes wrong, guess what? We call 911 and we expect to see the police as well.
Yeah, and listen, that's not to say that, it's not to say that there aren't things that the NYPD does that oversteps constitutional rights and that can be looked at, but make a valid argument, right? Like you just said, okay, 97% of the people in the gang database are people of color. How many people in New York City of people of color are in gangs? Like how many people of color occupy gangs? And it's the same number. Mm-hmm. How many people are what's the percentage of people of color that are victims of gang violence? It's more than that. It's like 99% of people of color are harmed by gang violence. And it's like, okay, so you have no argument. Like these people aren't harmed. There's a process to get in there. While they're in the gang, it's basically there to keep them safe. And to me, that's like it's an irrational argument. They used it with marijuana also, to legalize marijuana. And I'm not a fan of the legalization of marijuana, the way they went about it. I have no problem with marijuana per se. Like if it came from the ground and it was grown organically, I don't care, as long as you're not getting in your car, as long as I'm not going to the park with my kids and I don't have to smell it, I don't care. Mm-hmm. But the way they did it, where it's like these non-organic substances and these stores everywhere, and now everywhere you go, it smells. I don't love it at all. I'm not a fan of it at all. But the reason they used to do that is they said that the majority of people arrested for marijuana offenses are people of color. And I'm like, well, that's not a good argument, in my opinion, because in New York City, the majority of people that are arrested for robbery are people of color. The majority arrested for murder are people of color. That's not a good argument for me to rationalize with you. Like, let's drill down on that further. Okay. And then what? And like, so that's what city council is doing, is like, they're fanning the flames of racism without being able to actually prove the racism.
Yeah.
Where, it's organic. It's not, it's not, no one's sitting there and being, oh yeah, just put all those Black people in the database. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
So it's wild. But as far as public safety, you married a one-time cop, like what would be a message to the cops on here, that are listening, the cops that are on here, the voters, the retired cops, the cop families? Like, what would be your message? What's Athena Clarke going to do as a city council member of District 46 for public safety? Obviously, public safety is the number one concern.
I think we're trying to solve this issue of public safety. Mind you, it's the same people that are pretty much committing the same crimes over and over again. So that's a problem in and of itself. But also when it comes to crime, the issue is people are desperate, especially now. Like we just finished discussing about the mandates, and the mandates didn't just affect us. You know what I mean? There are other people who are business owners or worked in elsewhere where they were also mandated to take the shot and may have chosen not to. And so they're out of work or any other circumstances. And so they turn to crime, right? Not to excuse their behavior, but that's just what it is. Like right now, New York feels like Gotham City, except Gotham isn't a real place and New York is. And so a lot of these people, they turn to crime, and we're trying to remedy the situation on one end and not on the other. So it's like we want to hold NYPD accountable, but then how are you trying to fix what's happening? Everything is so expensive. You can't afford to buy food. You can't afford to buy eggs. Eggs is a luxury, right? People can't pay their rent. They can't pay their mortgage. They couldn't pay to keep their stores open, right? I know people who had to close restaurants because of this. You walk down Flatbush Avenue, half the stores are for rent because the businesses are shut down. When you put people in desperate situations, crime is going to rise. And you can't just say like, oh, NYPD needs to fix this when the citizens are still suffering. You're throwing money at migrants while your citizens are suffering and they have nothing, right? I am literally this close. I could have been someone like that doesn't have anything. You understand? Like, it's literally just the grace of God that has kept me this long and kept me going and gave me the opportunity to not have to do that. But you can't create, right, the vigilante and then be mad at them with the situation that you created. So in terms of public safety, it needs to be on both ends. We need to remedy what people are going through, and we need to stop throwing our resources and our money at migrants. Like I said, I'm a child of immigrants, so I don't have a problem with immigrants, right? But I do have a problem with people who have been working hard, who's been living here, and they have nothing. I do have a problem with that. To me, that is an issue, right? My sisters and I all suffered at the hand of the mandates. My younger sister is in food management, and my older sister is also a teacher. So that's 3 of us who were out of work when everything happened. That could have been deadly for us. You understand? We could have turned and said, hey, let's go rob this. Let's go do this. That's what happens when people are desperate. So we need to fix and give resources to individuals and provide them, the ability to make ends meet, as well as I think that we need to stop, especially with politicians. We may not agree with everything that NYPD does, right? Like, I am not a cop. I don't know how it is to be a cop, but I do know that for myself personally, like I said, I do look for them for protection, right? When something is going wrong. If you continue telling Black and brown people, and this is coming from your politicians, that the cops are not safe, what do you think is going to happen? We need to be able to, a lot of minorities now, like most of the people I know who are cops are Black, right? And so we need to stop with this whole race baiting, because these are our Black brothers and sisters who are also in this uniform, who you are harming. So we need to see more individuals like us in the community. I don't know if there's a way to have some kind of, the same way like on the news, right? When the cop does something wrong, they love to highlight that and show this is that. I don't think more people who put on that uniform plan to do harm, right? I think that for the most part, NYPD does a pretty good job, in my opinion, right? So they need to find ways to try to incentivize, and let's try to highlight the positive interactions that civilians have with the police.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so common sense. It's common sense, and you're right that, and you brought up a point here, right? And like this is the thing that really bothers me. It's like, I lived in New York City my entire life, except for the last 3 years after I got the boot in my ass to get out. I still own a home in New York City, and I'm back frequently. I'm back usually quarterly. Every 3 months, I'm back there. New York City is not the city it was a decade ago. It's not the city it was 6 years ago.
No,
it's not. It's not safe. Crime is through the roof. I'm okay. I could walk around any neighborhood in New York City. I'm fine. I can't say the same for my blind daughter. I won't say the same for my wife. I'm okay. I'm a grown man. I'm 215 pounds. I work out every day. I feel comfortable going around New York City. However, I see things and I see people and I see tourists as I'm walking through the city, as I'm on the ferry, as I'm on the train. They do not seem comfortable to me. They are very, very scared, and rightfully so. It's not this perception of fear. We consistently hear New York City Mayor Eric Adams talking about how safe New York City is, how he brought crime down. When news article after news article, we see the fudging of crime statistics. We see the downplaying of crime statistics. What are your thoughts about Eric Adams as a whole, as the mayor? Like, just the gaslighting, the fact that he will not even acknowledge us. He basically says how he helped you. He says how he helps all of us. He loves everybody. He loves New Yorkers. He loves hardworking people. He does it because his mother came from nothing. His mother was a cleaner. And I'm like, could you imagine that somebody treated your mother the way you treated us?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, could you imagine that? Like, you know, and like, what are your thoughts on Eric Adams?
So what I want to say, I can't say. I don't know if it's okay for a person running for city council to say that. So I would say I am not a fan. I never liked him, to be honest, never liked him. But I feel like he had an opportunity to do good and he didn't, right? Because when de Blasio put us on LWAP, he didn't have to come and fire us. Like, even if we wanted to say public safety, he could have said, okay, leave them home for the year and then brought us all back, right? Didn't do that. He's lying about New York being safe. I personally don't feel safe in New York. And I'm not even someone who rides the subway or rides the bus. Like, I drive and I still don't feel safe. Like, when I'm taking my daughter out her car seat, I'm looking over my shoulder. If someone is walking behind me, I like stop to make them walk in front of me. Like, I don't feel safe, and New York is all I know. So for you to say that New York is safe is very unfair, and it's not true. We see what's happening, and we don't believe it. Like, we see the crime that's happening. We see how much it's increasing, and we do not feel safe, and it is not safe at all. And so I'm not a fan because I just feel like he's a liar. He's a liar. He just lies and lies and lies, and he continues to perpetuate these lies. And, you know, some people may feel like, oh, you know, well, you know, he's Black and he's a mayor. But like we already discussed, I'm Black. I was in the workforce and you took my job. So I don't approve. I don't appreciate you. And I don't like Eric Adams at all.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think, you know, people are like, oh, you hate him. I'm like, I don't hate him. I just think he's a horrible person. I'm like, listen to what he says on the stage and then relate it to us. What did he say? People are disenfranchised when they can't work. So Athena's not disenfranchised. You know, we should support immigrants. You know, I'm like, you know, it's like, it's sick to me, man. And I'm like, and when I hear him tell the story about his mother, because I think the thing that hurts me so much about Eric Adams is like, I listen to his story and it mirrors my story so much, right? I grew up in an Italian neighborhood. My parents were poor, very low income family. I traditionally didn't like the police when I was a kid. I've been arrested. I've seen the ills of the NYPD. I then became a cop. I became aware. And I'm like, here's a guy that, like, he's a success story. His story is a success story. His story is like, it's motivating to someone like me. I'm like, if he could be the mayor in New York City, I could be the mayor in New York City. Right. And so when I listen to him, like, he's like a motivating figure, and he steps in a time when New York City is still a great place, but it could be fixed because de Blasio had messed it up so bad. And I literally said on Fox News, I said, he knows what needs to be done. All he has to do is do it. And if he does it, he could potentially be the next president of the United States. But not only did he not do it, he turned his back on people. He turned his back on New Yorkers. And I'm with you with the whole immigrant thing too. I mean, he gave them everything. Everything. He gave illegals everything. And I want people that want to come here and have a good life. I want them to be able to do that. And I want them to be able to raise their generations here, like my parents were, like your parents, right? Like, we're all immigrants. We're all immigrants. But you put people who aren't even citizens of this country, and you gave them everything, and you put them in front of New York City residents. Yeah. And that's my biggest knock about not only Eric Adams, but all of City Council, you know. And you know, I knock all of City Council. I do. I don't hold anyone in high regard. I love Joanne Ariola. I like Vicky Palladino. I like Ina. I like the Common Sense Caucus. I like Bob Holden. I do. But like, overall, when I look at City Council, it's a failed body. Yeah. What should New York City Council expect of Athena Clarke when she's a City Council member? Well, I'm a voice of the people. You understand? So
currently my district is fighting against a homeless shelter. It's supposedly is being stated that it's going to be a men's shelter, which is in between like 3 or 4 schools in a residential area. And also the lithium battery plant, which is literally going to be we're in New York. There really isn't anywhere where people aren't really occupying space, right? And so that's something that we're fighting besides reinstate and compensate, because I'm standing 10 toes down on that. But the fact that the shelter that's coming, right? There was a letter that went out that said that my city council person knew that this was happening, right? She's saying it was a bait and switch, that they originally agreed for it to be affordable housing, and that now they're turning it into a shelter. However, there is a letter from 2023, and I've seen it, that said it in black and white, that they're turning it into a shelter, and she never said anything. And if you and the people agreed for housing, why is there a shelter being put in place and you aren't making noise and letting people know that they switched from then? You understand? It doesn't make any sense. And so something about the Democratic Party is that they put their people in, and you don't really get to go against the grain with them, right? It's like, hey, this is what we want you to do this, don't defer too far from that, don't deviate from that. I said no when thousands, millions were saying yes. So my yes is yes and my no is no. So you can rely on me that when I say I'm in agreement with you and I am standing with you, that is exactly what I am doing, right? I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, and I know what it means to be a New Yorker, what it means to be a Brooklynite. I had my daughter with no drugs, no epidural, and I was in labor for 36 hours, okay? And they were pressing me. They were coming to me and they were like, hey, her heart rate's dropping. We might have to give you the epidural. And I was like, no. So if I'm in that kind of pain and I can say no, then trust and believe that I am a force to be reckoned with when I am able-bodied and I'm good.
You got my vote. You got my vote. That is all. Damn, that's hardcore. Athena, listen, I can hear you. I'm embarrassed, but I didn't bring my charger in. I just got to run and get my charger. my computer's about to go. We do have a question from the audience. Hood Mayor, New York City. He asks, "What's your stance on mask mandates?" I hear you. Keep going.
Okay, so mask mandates is that still a thing?
No, but if it was, like, what would?
Oh yeah, I'm not for masking. It didn't make any sense. I'm sure maybe to some degree it did help protect, maybe for the first 5 minutes or so. But after that, the mask lost its efficacy. So I wouldn't be in agreement with masking. And honestly, the mask did so much damage to the youth. Like I said, I taught for a year. That year, before the mandate came, and we had to wear masks. Do you know how hard it is to teach phonics to 6-year-olds with a mask on your face? They can't see your mouth. They can't see the words that you're forming. That is important. They're only 6. They need to be able to see your facial expressions. They need to be able to see the nuances and certain things like that. Masks. I'm not for masks. Simply put.
No, yeah, you're for freedom. That's it.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
You're the individual. The individual.
If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask.
So, you feel like it's crazy. You sound like an American. You sound like someone who believes in individual liberty in the United States Constitution. Could you imagine that? I can't. I
Oh
don't.
my goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's insane.
So listen, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy campaign. I know you're out there campaigning. Is that and guys, wherever you're watching or listening to this, the links to donate to Athena's campaign or to follow her on social media are below. They'll be in the story. Is there anything that you're lacking? Do you need help with anything? You need help with people canvassing? Do you need, what's your goals for the campaign now? Where are you starting to focus now?
Petitioning for the Republican line just ended. So we're waiting to see if I got on the ballot. Fingers crossed that I did. So now that Republican petitioning is over, I'm also going to try to run on the independent line. So independent petitioning is going to begin. As well as fundraising. Now we need to fundraise. So it's 8-to-1 matching funds. And that's kind of where we're going next, because then we're going to see my face plastered all over, all over Old Mill Basin, Marine Park, Sheepshead Bay, and just getting the word out there. Like, even if I do believe that we need to stop being so divided with Democrat and Republican and just think, like common sense. Like, I met someone on Sunday and he was a Democrat and he was like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to vote for you. I mean, granted, that's why it's a vote. You can vote for whoever you want to, but what reason do you have to not vote for me? Like, you live in the same neighborhood I live in, and I'm telling you what they're doing, what your current city council person did, which was nothing. And I'm trying to fight for you. And because you see Republican, you don't want to vote for me. So I think we need to try to come out of those boxes, because human beings, we're not just defined by one thing. You can't just throw us in one category and then that be that. And just to focus on what the issues are and to get our voices, spread the word. Someone, say, hey, have you heard about Athena Clarke? She's running for our district. And this is what she believes in. This is what she stands for. And this is what she went through. And let's get this work done.
I always, we recently had Frank Morano on. He's running for city council in Staten Island. And he said something to me, and it's been sticking with me the last few days. He said, if you took away Republican and Democrat, if you took away the parties and you just said, all right, Athena's running against Mercedes Narcisse. Mm-hmm. He's like, overwhelmingly, people are going to vote for Athena because people vote on the issues. Mm-hmm. He's like, but the way society has brought us, it's we vote Republican, we vote Democrat.
Yeah.
Right. And there's this whole thing in New York. And it's so true, because I always just think back. I'm very conservative. I'm fiscally conservative. I'm individual freedom. I'm individual liberty. So I'm a very conservative person. But growing up in New York, working around New Yorkers, I worked around mainly Democrats. Mm-hmm. Some far left Democrats. And you know what they all say? You should run for office. I'll vote for you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, isn't that weird? Like, that's weird, because people are saying, I'll vote for you. But when you're going out there, they're not looking at you. They see you're a Republican.
Yeah.
I can't vote for Republicans. Why not? You're not voting for Republicans. I'm not the Republican. Athena's not the Republican Party. Athena Clarke is Athena Clarke.
That's it.
And that I don't understand. And like, I got a guy like Bob Holden, right? Like, I said the same thing. I'll never vote for a Democrat. I'll vote for Bob Holden. Mm-hmm. He's a Democrat. I'll vote for Bob Holden over 99.9% of New York. Mm. Like, he's a Democrat. Yeah. I mean, so because I'm voting for Bob Holden.
Exactly.
And like that's the thing I think we got lost in. And it's just, honestly, that's what we need to break. That's what needs to be broken in New York City.
Yeah.
Eric Adams just announced he's an independent, because
I'm sure.
He just announced he's an independent. So it's going to be an interesting race. It's going to be an interesting mayoral race. Anything else you want to touch home on before we get out of here? Is there any points we missed? Any parts of your campaign you want people to know?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I'm also fighting on the liberties of our children. Public school is under attack, and they try to keep parents out, and just in public spaces too, because I've also been aware of, even in the libraries, there are like rooms that parents aren't allowed to go in, but like the teens can go in there without their parents, like 13 to like 18. It's like an adult can't accompany them, because I guess whatever they're trying to indoctrinate them in, they don't want the parent to see. And I think we have to be very careful when it comes to our little ones. My daughter's a baby. She's only 16 months, but you're a parent. So the years go by really fast. And I'm not only trying to create a situation that's better for me, but for my daughter and any future children, because I feel like if we don't fight for New York now, then it's going to be lost completely. And we're like halfway, maybe 75% there, but we're almost there. Like, I feel like we're at a place where we need to start holding these politicians accountable, but we also need to hold ourselves accountable and start to pay attention to what's going on. So I would also try to fight for, parental rights within the schools, just in general. Like, you can't tell a doctor that you don't want to vaccinate your child and then you get kicked out of the practice. Like, things like that, to me, don't make any sense. As a parent, and like I said, as someone who labored with her child, I know what's best for my child, just like how I know what's best for me. And I don't need government input on raising my child.
I
So
love it.
that'll be it.
Yeah, I love it, man. You know, we need civil servants. We don't need politicians. You know,
We don't.
we need
It's
civil
literally
servants.
us, like coming together and getting it done. That's how it was done before. So I don't know, like this whole politician thing, like it just needs to be us. Like we can sit down and we can come together as a people and do what's best for us in our best interest, because clearly we can't wait for them to come and save us, because they're not. They already let us down. They're not for the working class. They're not for the working people. I don't understand what's even happening, but what I do know is that it needs to stop.
So is Athena Clarke going to be accountable to the people? Are you ever going to allow people to be harmed by some government mandate and not speak out about it?
No. Even if I can't do anything, but I'll be loud and proud and stand with you, because honestly, like you said, like most of us, we agree on these issues. And it's this whole divide and conquer, right? Someone actually recently asked me, she said that she was a nurse and that she, took the shot to keep her job. And so she was like, she wasn't in agreement with reinstate and compensate. And I was like to her, I was like, I empathize with you and I understand. I was like, but I'm not the enemy. I was like, the enemy is that we should have never had to even make this decision to begin with. So we can't be divided against each other. I'm in the same boat. We're just opposite ends of the same issue, right? You took the shot. I didn't take the shot. We both made a hard choice. What we need to do is refocus that energy on the governing agencies that put us in this predicament to begin with.
Last thing, I missed one question on you. New York City retirees have been suing New York City over Medicaid, over being Medicaid eligible. They New York City had in our contracts had said that New York City retirees, when they're Medicaid eligible, will always have the same benefits that are given to active members.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, to fund raises, our unions, the MCU, the Municipal Coalition of Unions, whatever, the Municipal Labor Union, MCLU, whatever the hell it is, the Municipal Coalition of Labor Unions, they had given away retiree health care. They used it as a chipping block. New York City retirees have sued and won multiple times, and the city's trying to end around any way they can to change retiree health care when they become Medicaid eligible. So these are people that are 65 over, or people that are disabled, people in their most vulnerable times. How do you feel about that? Would you stand on the side of New York City retirees that the city should be held accountable and hold up to the promises that they made, that's not only in our contract on paper, but was actually signed into law?
Yeah, I'm definitely on the side of the retirees. I'm still pretty young, but I would be a New York City retiree as well. So it affects me. It affects my husband. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you said that this is what you're guaranteed, and a lot of us took these jobs for the certain perks, right? So we knew we would get certain health care, certain health benefits, right? As a teacher, I knew I would get summers off, right? So there's certain things that when you take on this job, you think about your future, you think about the long term. So, and that was the one thing, honestly, I was always afraid of, like even teaching, because teachers, we had to teach until 63 to retire, which is insane. But anyway, but I was always worried, like, what if the time comes for me to retire and the things that they promised me aren't there anymore? And that's what has happened to these retirees. And it's not fair and it's not right, especially when you're up in your age. Like, you need these things. So it's not fair what's happening to them. And of course, I would definitely stand with the retirees, because there's no reason not to. What reason is there not to?
Absolutely. So Athena, where can we reach out to you? Like I said, I have all the links below. Where can we reach out to you? Where can we donate to your campaign? And any last words you have for New York City?
So yes, all the links that you have is where you can reach me. My Instagram is Clarke, like you see on the screen with my E, the number 4 council. And it's for Instagram and it's for Twitter. My website is 2025clarkcitycouncil.com. And my Facebook is actually like 2 Facebooks. It's like a business page and my regular page. So you will see Athena Clarke, or you'll see Clarke for Council as well. And that's where you can donate. That's where you can find me. My phone numbers and everything is within those links. And the last things I want to say is, you know, that you can trust me to get the job done.
I love it. I love it. So people, listen, especially you in New York, go over Athena, throw us some money, even $20, whatever it is, 8 to 1. 8 to 1. It's big money for her. You know, $20 goes a long way.
Yeah.
We need to start electing people that are going to be not only accountable to us, but that actually have the civil service in their blood, not people that are looking to get rich or enrich themselves and their family. So Athena, you're a hero. Your story needs to be heard by more people. I'm looking forward to you getting to city council or wherever you want to go in the future. We need people like you. You sound like a leader. You sound like someone that needs that we need to put up on a pedestal. Your story needs to be heard. You shouldn't be shut out. So I thank you for coming on, and you know, you're welcome on the platform anytime. Anything you need, please let us know.
Thank you.
All right, ladies.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the great and powerful Athena Clarke. Let's go.
Yay!
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.